There's a moment in every man's life when he realizes the game has changed, when external validation stops mattering, when other people's opinions become background noise, when setbacks become stepping stones instead of roadblocks. This is the moment you become unshakable, and once you reach this state, you become something far more powerful, unstoppable. Today, we're diving deep into what the ancient Stoics knew about building unbreakable inner strength. Because here's what most men miss. Being unstoppable isn't about never falling down. It's about becoming so centered, so grounded in your own principles that nothing can knock you off course for long. The Stoics had a word for this: ataraxia, unshakable tranquility. Not the numbness of the defeated, but the calm confidence of someone who has learned to separate what they can control from what they cannot. Marcus Aurelius ruled the most powerful empire in human history, yet he wrote, "Confine yourself to the present." He understood that true power comes not from controlling circumstances, but from controlling your response to circumstances. Think about the most unshakable men you know. They're not the ones who never face adversity. They're the ones who face it without losing their center. They've developed what the Stoics called the inner citadel, a fortress of the mind that remains intact regardless of what happens in the external world. The foundation of unshakability is a simple but profound realization. You are not your circumstances. You are not your emotions. You are not even your thoughts. You are the consciousness that observes all of these things, and that consciousness cannot be shaken unless you allow it. Most men build their sense of security on external foundations: their job title, their bank account, their relationship status, other people's approval. The problem with external foundations is that they can crumble without warning. Epictetus, who went from slave to one of history's most respected philosophers, understood this better than anyone. He taught that there are only two categories in life: things you can control and things you cannot. Wisdom begins when you stop wasting energy on the second category. What can you control? Your thoughts, your choices, your responses, your effort, your character. That's it. Everything else falls into the category of things you cannot directly control. This isn't fatalism. This is freedom. When you stop trying to control the uncontrollable, you can focus all your energy on what actually matters. Modern psychology has validated what the Stoics intuited. Resilience isn't a personality trait you're born with, it's a skill you can develop. But here's what psychology often misses that the Stoics understood. True resilience isn't just about bouncing back from adversity, it's about becoming anti-fragile, actually growing stronger from stress and challenge. The Stoics practiced deliberate discomfort to build this anti-fragility. They would sleep on hard surfaces, eat simple foods, wear minimal clothing in cold weather. Not as punishment, but as training. They were strengthening their capacity to remain centered regardless of circumstances. One of the most powerful Stoic practices is called the view from above. Marcus Aurelius would regularly imagine himself from a cosmic perspective, seeing his problems and challenges from the vantage point of eternity. From this perspective, most of what disturbs us daily reveals itself as temporary and ultimately insignificant. The insult that ruins your morning, the setback that derails your week, the disappointment that sours your month. All of these fade into proper proportion when viewed from philosophical distance. The unshakable man has trained himself to zoom out automatically. He asks, will this matter in 5 years? What would I tell a friend in this situation? What would the wisest person I know do here? These questions create the space between stimulus and response that gives you back your power. Unshakability isn't built through dramatic gestures. It's built through small, consistent choices that compound over time. Every time you choose discipline over impulse, you make a deposit in your confidence account. Every time you remain calm under pressure, you strengthen your capacity for tranquility. The Stoics understood that character is built through daily practice. Every morning, they would remind themselves of what they could and couldn't control. Every evening, they would review their day, noting where they had acted according to virtue and where they had fallen short. Here's something most men don't realize. Unshakability is magnetic. People are naturally drawn to those who remain calm in chaos, centered in confusion, and steady in uncertainty. When you're unshakable, you become a fixed point that others can orient around. This isn't about being emotionless and distant. True Stoic unshakability is warm, present, and engaged. You feel deeply, but you're not controlled by your feelings. You care about outcomes, but you're not anxious about them. You're fully alive, but you're not reactive. Your mental energy is your most valuable resource. Most men waste enormous amounts of this energy on things they cannot control, worrying about the future, ruminating about the past, getting upset about other people's choices, fighting battles that don't matter. The unshakable man has learned to be economical with his mental energy. He doesn't waste it on unproductive thoughts or emotions. He channels it toward what he can actually influence, his own thoughts, choices, and actions. This creates a massive competitive advantage. While other men are scattered, anxious, and reactive, you're focused, calm, and proactive. While they're burning energy on drama and worry, you're directing energy toward building, creating, and improving. The Stoics practiced something called premeditatio malorum, imagining loss or setbacks before they happen. This wasn't pessimism, it was preparation. By mentally rehearsing difficulties, they reduced the shock and emotional impact when challenges actually arose. When you've already imagined and accepted the possibility of loss, you're not devastated when it happens. You've already processed the emotional impact. You can focus on responding wisely rather than reacting emotionally. Here's one of the deepest paradoxes the Stoics understood. The more you try to control everything, the less control you actually have. The more you can let go of what you cannot control, the more power you have over what you can. The man who focuses on controlling himself, his own thoughts, responses, and actions, often influences others naturally. People are drawn to those who have mastered themselves. Leadership flows naturally from self-mastery. This is why unshakability leads to unstoppability. When you're no longer wasting energy, trying to control the uncontrollable, you can focus all your power on what you can actually influence. This concentrated effort, applied consistently over time, becomes unstoppable force. One of the greatest tests of unshakability is social pressure, the opinions of others, the need for approval, the fear of judgment. Most men are unconsciously controlled by these forces their entire lives. The unshakable man has developed immunity to social pressure, not because he doesn't care about people, but because he's more committed to his own principles than to others' approval. He's willing to be misunderstood, criticized, or even rejected if that's the price of living authentically. Here's the key insight. Unshakability isn't the end goal. It's the foundation for something greater. When you're no longer disturbed by circumstances, when you're no longer reactive to events, when you're no longer dependent on external validation, you become free to pursue your highest potential. Most men spend their lives in reactive mode. Something happens, they react. Someone criticizes them, they get defensive. They face a setback, they get discouraged. Their energy is constantly being drained by emotional reactions to circumstances. But when you become unshakable, this energy becomes available for creation, building, and achieving. Instead of reacting to life, you begin to shape it. Instead of being pushed around by circumstances, you begin to influence them. This is when you become unstoppable. Not because nothing can touch you, but because nothing can stop your forward momentum for long. Setbacks become temporary pauses rather than permanent stops. Criticism becomes feedback rather than devastating judgment. Failure becomes education rather than identity. The Stoics were playing the long game. They understood that temporary defeats don't determine ultimate victory. Marcus Aurelius faced plagues, wars, and betrayals, but he never lost sight of his larger purpose. This long-game perspective is crucial for becoming unstoppable. Most men give up too quickly. They face a setback and conclude they're not cut out for success. They experience rejection and decide they're not worthy of love. The unstoppable man understands that obstacles are not roadblocks, they're the path. Every challenge you overcome builds capacity for handling larger challenges. Every problem you solve increases your problem-solving ability. This is why the combination of unshakability and unstoppability is so powerful. You remain centered during difficulties, which allows you to think clearly and respond wisely. This wise response often turns obstacles into opportunities, setbacks into comebacks, and problems into promotions. Becoming unshakable and unstoppable requires daily practice. Morning reflection. Start each day by reminding yourself what you can and cannot control. Evening review. End each day by examining your thoughts, choices, and responses. Present moment awareness. Throughout the day, practice returning your attention to the present moment. Voluntary discomfort. Regularly expose yourself to minor discomforts to build your capacity to remain centered under pressure. The challenge of becoming unshakable and unstoppable is perhaps greater today than ever before. We live in a world designed to shake us. Constant notifications, endless comparisons on social media, news cycles focused on crisis and conflict. But this same challenging environment makes unshakability and unstoppability more valuable than ever. In a world full of scattered, anxious, reactive people, the man who remains centered and focused has an enormous advantage. Warren Buffett talks about having an inner scorecard versus an outer scorecard. The unshakable man operates from an inner scorecard. He knows what matters to him and why. He's not constantly checking external metrics for validation. This inner scorecard becomes the foundation for unstoppability. When your motivation comes from internal conviction rather than external validation, you can persist through obstacles that would stop others. The ultimate freedom isn't the ability to do whatever you want. It's the ability to remain yourself regardless of circumstances. When you're unshakable, you're free from the tyranny of circumstances. When you're unstoppable, you're free to pursue your highest potential regardless of obstacles. Becoming unshakable and unstoppable isn't a destination. It's a way of traveling through life. It's a daily commitment to focusing on what you can control, accepting what you cannot, and having the wisdom to know the difference. Every day you have the opportunity to practice these principles. Every difficult situation is a chance to build unshakability. Every obstacle is an opportunity to develop unstoppable momentum. The question isn't whether you'll face challenges, you will. The question is whether you'll use those challenges to become stronger or allow them to make you weaker. The choice is always yours. Start where you are. Focus on controlling your thoughts, your choices, and your responses. Build the inner citadel that cannot be shaken. Develop the forward momentum that cannot be stopped. If this resonates with your deepest values, if you're ready to stop being pushed around by circumstances and start shaping your own destiny, comment below, "I am unshakable." Remember, every master was once a beginner. Every unshakable man was once shaken. Every unstoppable force was once at rest. But they all made the decision to change, and they followed through with consistent action. Your journey toward unshakable strength and unstoppable momentum begins with your next choice. Make it count.